Records reveal that police used surveillance video to arrest and charge a postal worker here from Leola, Genesee Rodriguez, with stealing U.S. mail, forging checks, and cashing them in for hundreds of thousands of dollars all over several months.
I put it right here, stuck it in there, closed it, put my flag up.
Christine Hoover of Leola mailed the $40 bill as she's always done, but this time the company never received the check.
The check didn't make it to Busy Beaver. Somebody wrote it out for $6,500.
What was your reaction?
My heart stopped and I was like, what's going on?
Christine called her bank and filed a police report. It turns out she wasn't alone.
It's not somebody stealing it out of the mailbox. It's probably getting taken before it gets here.
Ty Fisher knew something was wrong when checks for donations and tuition didn't make it to Veritas Academy.
That's too much of a coincidence.
East Lampeter Township Police received dozens of similar reports from residents and businesses in the Leola area.
It was just upsetting.
Police then placed a surveillance camera inside mail carrier Genesee Rodriguez's delivery truck. Investigators say video showed her stealing mail. They say she electronically tampered with checks, increasing their amounts, forging assumed names, then cashing them in for close to $700,000.
The police department told me, do not put nothing in my mailbox. Post office is not even, I guess, a mile down the road. I take everything down there.
And there are hundreds of charges against Rodriguez in connection with these crimes. Police are also looking into similar thefts in the East Petersburg post office. That's where Rodriguez worked before she came to Leola last fall.
Racking up the charges.
And when they checked her car, her trunk was full of mail and correspondence, and that's where he got my name and address.
A mail carrier under fire, accused of going on a shopping spree using credit card information she stole from dozens along her mail route.
Good evening and thank you for joining us. I'm Keith Garvin.
And I'm Daniela Guzman. Here's a map of the area. We want to show you the mail carrier Ashley Williams was initially charged with mail theft and credit card abuse of an elderly person, but those charges have since been upgraded. KPRC2's Bill Barajas spoke with residents in the community about this crime.
Well, Williams allegedly stole over $220,000 from residents and businesses here in the Woodlands Heights. That includes checks, credit cards, and debit cards. One of those credit card thefts was caught on camera, and we obtained that video.
I threw her package on the porch.
This was Ashley Williams in 2021. Williams on the same route where investigators say she stole from over 50 victims. One of them, Sandy Elizondo.
Or 3 cards total. And altogether it was probably about $3,000, maybe $3,500.
And these are cards that you had ordered for yourself?
Right.
Or for your mom?
Yeah.
Elizondo was one of many who began to see fraudulent charges pile up, and she believes it was more than just her debit cards taken.
In 2021, when I got laid off, when I finally went to file for unemployment, they told me there was already an active claim. And it was not me, so I was like, it's not me, so there was some type of fraud. It had to be her.
Williams was in court just yesterday. Prosecutors say they believe the crime spree began in 2019. According to court records, during her arrest, Williams was found to be carrying 47 parcels of mail in her car, all of which belonged to someone other than her.
After the investigation, it was discovered that over $220,000 in checks that were destined for businesses in that zip code had been stolen and wound up in the bank account of this defendant. Over $150,000 of that was sent to go to nonprofits, churches, centers that work with mentally disabled adults. So the 3 new charges that we filed indicted yesterday were the aggregate theft from nonprofit, over $150K, the theft of essentially everything that wasn't a nonprofit, which was in a 3rd-degree felony range, $30 to $150K, and then a fraudulent use of identifying information.
Federal prosecutors say Hachikosela Muchemba was caught and cuffed earlier this week trying to leave the country using this newly issued African passport. The former mailman is accused of running a scheme for almost 2 years, stealing checks, changing the names, and depositing them into his accounts. Investigators say he stole nearly $1.7 million from customers on his mail route in the affluent Woodlands Heights neighborhood. And they say he even gave Christmas cards to victims he stole from. According to court documents, the 43-year-old started working out of this post office in February 2020, and investigators say he started swiping checks a year later. The feds say these are photos of Muchemba withdrawing some of the stolen money, and in some of the ATM surveillance pics, he's seen wearing his U.S. Postal Service gear. Prosecutors say he got a coworker to help. According to newly obtained court documents, that postal worker has admitted that Muchimba recruited her to steal checks for him, and he paid her $1,000 for stealing a check from the mail for him. Prosecutors allege Muchimba paid her via Cash App about 1 week after she stole the check and gave it to him. Court records show Muchimba was placed on unpaid leave in March. Prosecutors say they sat down with him and his attorney this summer and laid out all of the evidence. But after hearing the strength of the government's case, the defendant rejected a pre-indictment plea offer and tried to flee the United States on a plane headed to Africa. Prosecutors say he was arrested at Dulles Wednesday morning as he tried to board a flight to Zambia. They say he bought the ticket using a credit card in someone else's name, and he had $2,000 in U.S. cash in his bag. They say this passport from Zambia was issued in July.
In the medical center area, listen up, because police are telling you to check your bank and credit card statements after a postal worker was arrested today for mail theft.
The mail carrier is accused of stealing an elderly woman's bank cards and using them to make fraudulent purchases. KENS 5 reporter Hannah Tita has new details tonight from the arrest affidavit. But first, the U.S. Postal Service is responding. What are they saying, Hannah?
Yeah, a spokesperson for the federal agency tells us this type of behavior is not tolerated. But USPS would not give us the postal worker's route. So that's why police are telling everyone living in the medical center area to check for suspicious charges, as there could be more victims.
Head down, Jessica Rubio was walked in front of cameras. Still wearing her uniform, the 31-year-old was taken into custody this morning.
It's a breach of trust, right?
Rubio's job was to deliver mail, but instead, police say she stole it. Their investigation began last month when an elderly woman noticed some suspicious activity on her credit card. Detectives tracked the purchases to 2 local businesses.
Detectives went and worked hand in hand with those businesses where they were able to get still shots, video surveillance still shots of a suspect.
They took the pictures back to the victim,
who identified that suspect as her postal woman mail carrier.
According to the affidavit for arrest, the victim was waiting for 2 replacement cards to arrive, but they never did. And that's when she noticed 2 fraudulent charges, one in March and one in April. Police didn't say what the accused mail carrier bought or how much she spent, but Rubio was charged with felony credit or debit card abuse of an elderly person. And because mail theft is a federal crime, police tell us USPS has opened its own investigation. In a statement, USPS said this type of alleged behavior is not tolerated. The overwhelming majority of Postal Service employees are honest, hardworking, and trustworthy.
Police are encouraging everyone to be vigilant and to keep an eye on their debit and credit card statements, just as a general practice. Now, if you live in the medical center area and you come across suspicious charges, you are asked to file a police report. That will help detectives determine if there are more victims along Rubio's route.
Major theft from a mail facility at JFK Airport. 2 postal workers have now been arrested, and they're accused of stealing Treasury checks, maybe worth even as much as $40 million. News 4's Gus Rosendale joining us from the newsroom tonight with what else we've learned, Gus.
Well, Natalie, detectives with the NYPD tell us they were initially tipped off by a bank that red flagged suspicious deposits, and they end up joining forces with federal authorities, and that joint effort led to arrests earlier today.
What you guys do? What happened?
Tonight, these suspects are accused of conspiring to steal more than 100 checks worth millions of dollars from the JFK mail facility.
We uncovered really a point of compromise, and that point of compromise was JFK Post Office.
Prosecutors believe it's the biggest theft at JFK since the famous Lufthansa heist in 1978, when about $6 million in cash and jewelry was stolen from the airport. United States Attorney for the Eastern District of New York, Breon Peace, said in a statement, criminals who cash in on checks stolen from the mail can expect to fill out change of address forms for the federal prison they will be calling home. 2 of the defendants, prosecutors say, worked for the Postal Service. 3 others are charged with endorsing and depositing what investigators describe as stolen checks issued by the U.S. Treasury, mainly heading to international destinations.
These are checks that people are waiting for. These are checks that people are waiting for their livelihood.
New at 6, we've learned that included Social Security benefits, COVID stimulus checks, and tax refunds. Indictments charge at least $4 million was stolen. However, NYPD detectives think a lot more was taken.
When we look at ledgers that have been recovered and phone records and the like, our investigative theory is that over $40 million has been fraudulently either obtained or affected. So it's a big number.
A team of local and federal law enforcement has been working on the case for the past year and a half.
These are individuals working at the post office that we entrust. We give really a sacred trust to, right? To deliver everything with integrity.